Welcome to In Confidence, where what we share in confidence helps us grow in confidence. Today's episode is all about how do we get better at public speaking? Why is this a topic that's near and dear to my heart? Well, first of all, we've surveyed thousands of people now, and out of the 8 superpowers we've identified that underpin confidence, only 12% of people have the performing superpower. The performing superpower is the one that is all about, I feel comfortable speaking in front of others, I'm comfortable sitting next to someone I don't know and having a conversation. And that means that 88% of us are naturally uncomfortable with public speaking, or we get stage fright, or we have anxiety. And so I thought it would be a really important topic for us to dive deep into. When I was 12 years old, I literally had to save money and raise money for going to college. In the 90s, my college tuition was $28,000 a year, which my parents ran a Mongolian barbecue. I'm not sure we knew how we were going to pay for college. And my dad went around town and asked people, how can my kid make extra money for college? And at the time, the Rotary Club, the Lions Club, all of these clubs had these student speaking competitions where your kid could win $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, which was a lot of money in the 90s if you made it all the way to nationals. And so in the process of just going around Fontana, California and learning more about this, my father discovered the Toastmasters, which if you've never heard of the Toastmasters, definitely go to toastmasters.org and learn all about them. They're an incredible international nonprofit. And the local Toastmasters chapter let me sit in and observe their weekly meetings. And during those weekly meetings, they go through an entire approach on how to be a better public speaker. Things like table topics, which for 2 minutes, you have to talk about a topic that they ask you to speak about. Or they would count the number of ums or pauses or filler words that you used when you spoke. You actually had a little box in the back of these meetings with a red and a green symbol, which told you that your time was up or you could keep talking. And I was really lucky because at the age of 12, for 4 years, my entire length of high school, I got a chance to be a better public speaker. Now, I'm an immigrant kid who, our family was one of the few Asian families in this town. And I'm not sure I would have learned how to be a great public speaker because my community isn't necessarily extroverted and charismatic and outspoken. I'm not trivializing or stereotyping my community, but it was not something where I would have been taught how to operate in Western society with extroversion and charisma. So I was very lucky early on in my journey to get a lot of coaching and a lot of practice and a lot of rehearsal that made me comfortable as I was exposed to more public settings. So before I get into my tips today on how to improve your public speaking skills, I do want to give a shout out to Toastmasters. They're in almost every city. If you get a chance, check out their website. See if you want to join a local Toastmasters chapter. It's not that expensive to do, and it's a great risk-free place to learn and practice public speaking. And before I get into all the tips, I will tell you, public speaking, it doesn't have to be on a stage. It doesn't have to be a bridesmaid's toast. It doesn't have to be giving a presentation. Just in everyday interactions, it just requires practice. And it just requires a lot of preparation and rehearsal. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. So find places like Toastmasters where you can just practice and have fun and enjoy it. Today, I'm going to cover 3 areas of practical tips so that the next time, whether it's just an everyday interaction, sitting next to someone at a dinner that you don't know, or getting ready for that big presentation, you feel just a little bit more capable, just a little bit more prepared. The first area that I want to talk about is called embrace your body. And I know that sounds weird, but public speaking is actually a very physical thing. This is why actors teach classes on public speaking, because it is a very physical activity. And the more you get your body ready for public speaking, the better prepared you'll be. So I'm going to give you a couple of my tips around how to embrace your body. The first, which I cover in season 1, episode 4, is my own personal 19 seconds. It's called 757. before you go into any situation where you have to speak, I encourage you to close your eyes, inhale through your nose for 7 counts, hold it at the back of your throat for 5, and then exhale through your mouth for 7 counts. The first time you do this, I want you to let go of any negative thought you brought into the day and just exhale it, and don't let it have permission to reside in whatever situation you're going into. And then I encourage you to do a second time. And the second time, I want you to think of the moment where you were happiest or felt most powerful in the last year of your life. And I want you to inhale and hold on to that moment. Just the simple act of inhaling deeply and exhaling deeply lowers your heart rate, oxygenates your brain, and allows you to channel on a moment where you've already felt your own power. It allows you to tap into that reserve of power you have. I do this every single time I go on a stage or have to get on a phone call or get into Zoom. I do 7-5-7. The other thing that I do as part of that is I will blubber my lips. If you're watching this on video, I go I blubber my lips a few times. I go ahead and widen my mouth. I stretch it out, because your vocal cords in your face are your instrument. So just like you're stretching before you work out, you stretch out your calves, your arms, your legs, you want to stretch out your face. So I do a couple of neck movements. I will go ahead and blubber my lips, stretch out my mouth. It's just an easy way to get yourself going. The other thing I do around embracing my body is I have a ritual. So that ritual is I have a playlist on my phone, and I have listened to this series of songs in sequence 20 minutes before I have a big meeting, big presentation, or a speech. It's so funny because if any of you get that Spotify year-end recap, this playlist of songs always shows up in my top listened to tracks. So that's my own ritual. You might have a different one. You might want to walk around the block. You might want to dance a little. You want to get your body involved. And I think moving your body helps you move your mind. And so for me, that playlist really helps me move my body, move my mind. And that is, I think, a way to prepare for when you're going into a situation where you might feel anxiety or stage fright. The next thing, and I borrow this from my friend Janine Driver, who is a body language expert. She always says, where the wall meets the ceiling is a confident feeling. And what she means by that is a lot of times we're taught to throw our shoulders back and hold our chest up high and stand up straight. Well, that can actually be a little uncomfortable. Most of us don't have that core strength to have perfect posture all the time. And so what she says is if you think about, the superhero character Iron Man has a little plate that sits at the center of his heart. And she says if you take that plate, so that center of your chest, and you think about where the wall meets the ceiling, so that corner, wherever the ceiling and the wall meet, there's a little corner, and you just angle your chest, that Iron Man plate, up towards that corner. So it's not about shoulders back and holding perfect posture, but just a little tilt up so that you feel like your body is elevated and you're physically feeling more powerful. In addition, let's say you're on a Zoom or on a call or in a meeting. If you just stand up, she always says stand your ground. If you just stand up, you'll actually feel more powerful. Sometimes I'll do a Zoom or a phone call standing up, because even that little act channels power into my body. Your hands matter. So when you think about giving a presentation or even speaking, by the way, if you're on Zoom, I always tell people you want to crop yourself the way newscasters do on the evening news so that you see below your chest a little bit. So you can also get your hands now involved. They've shown these videos where without sound, the speaker who doesn't use their hands is not seen as credible or trustworthy, but the person who's using hand movements or using gestures or engaging their hands is seen as more engaging, more trustworthy, more credible, even though you can't hear what they're saying. So your hands do matter. And again, I'm borrowing from my dear friend Janine Driver, in that she actually has all these cues on hand symbols you can use. So if you want to channel power, just hold your chin a little bit. So in terms of holding your chin, you seem engaged, you seem thoughtful. And if you ever look at pictures of the former CEO of PepsiCo, Indra Nooyi. She's always holding her chin when she's sitting in a chair because it's contemplative. Or you can castle your hands. So it's kind of like evil villains do that. They castle their hands to communicate, I'm listening, I'm in the room, I'm thinking about what you're saying. And you can even use these gestures if someone cuts you off in a meeting and you don't want to say, okay, you cut me off because that might seem like you're being difficult. You can just push your chair back from the table and castle your hands. If you do that a few times, in fact, someone else in the room will say, excuse me, you've been interrupting Lisa quite a bit. But you can use your hands and your body language as an indicator of engagement. The last thing around embracing your body is your morning voice. And your morning voice, it's not that you want a deep voice, but if you think about it, when you wake up in the morning, before you've had that first glass of water or that first cup of coffee, your morning voice is a little bit deeper than your typical speaking voice. I think you want to think about what tone of voice you want to bring to the table. When I was 23 years old and I was an analyst in a consulting firm, I actually sat down with a speech therapist and she gave me feedback. She said, I want you to think about you speak in a sing-songy manner. So here's an example. This is a great opportunity. I would end almost every statement as if it were a question. And she said, it should be, this is a great opportunity. So if you use your morning voice, you can give power behind your words. All of this is about how do we use body language to signal that we're engaged. I would encourage you to do this in front of a mirror. I know you've heard that a number of times, but let's say you have 5 minutes in a meeting where you need to speak up. I really encourage you to sit in front of a mirror and practice that over and over again and see how your body language plays out. We all have iPhones now. Film yourself if you want to see yourself for real. When I was at the firm, I had someone who always presented as slightly more soft-spoken. And I said, that's not wrong. In fact, I think you're the smartest person on the team in terms of your analytics. Her name's Maria. And she, for the first time, was presenting at a steering committee meeting for our client. We practiced her 3 minutes, her 3 slides, over and over again for the entire week before the presentation. And every single time I gave her a little tweak, I gave her a little thing to change about her body language, her tone of voice, ask a question here. Oftentimes, we don't practice enough, and so we go in cold into a situation. She's now the senior vice president at an incredibly successful retailer. And she often talks about that week where I helped her get over her stage fright, but it was about her body, her preparation, and her rehearsal. The second area of tips that I want to give you on public speaking are practicing storytelling. And so let's say you are actually going to have to give a real presentation. I always say, break down everything you're going to say and layer in a few things. One, is there a personal story or a metaphor that you can bring into it? People love metaphors, analogies, or a personal connection you have to the content. One of the formulas I also use is called situation complication resolution. So it's a very simple formula for people to follow. I always say, I'm going to share with you 3 things today: the situation and where we are today, what the wrinkle is, what is the challenge or hurdle we're going to face, and here's my recommendations, here's my resolution. So it could be the market is changing, competitors are entering quickly. Complication, we've got some things in the business that can really give us an edge, but also might hold us back from capturing the market opportunity. Resolution, here are the 3 things we're going to go and do differerly. If you create a formula, and then within that formula, you add in personal stories or a metaphor or an analogy, it actually allows you to have whatever you're saying, what insight you're telling, it comes across more powerfully. Storytelling and personal connections captivate audiences. Even if you're just sitting next to someone at a dinner party, it could be the 1 or 2 stories that you want to share about yourself or tell about something that's happening in the news. You want to be able to connect with people based on stories. I will say bridesmaids toasts. If you were going to give a great bridesmaids toast, think about the 3 things you want to say about your friend. It could be that she's the kindest person, she's the funniest person, she's the most warm-hearted, whatever it is you want to say, and then pick 1 or 2 anecdotes that highlight that. People love specificity in what you're talking about relative to that person. And as part of storytelling, the more passion you bring to it, the more you're going to connect with an audience. So really invest in great stories. And the last thing, and I think this isn't necessarily just about public speaking on stage, this could be simply engaging with another person, is you want to have a third area, which I call energize and enthuse. Have you ever met someone that you're just like, their energy is infectious? Like, I want to spend time with them because I walk away feeling like my batteries are recharged. What do these people do? They do a couple of things. The first is they remember names. And I feel like I have to borrow that from Dale Carnegie because I loved How to Win Friends and Influence Others. And in that book, he talks about a person's name is the sweetest sound to their mind, right? You just love it when people remember their names. One of my pet peeves in life is when people say, I'm bad at names. And I always say, it's because you haven't made an effort. And I'm sorry if that's you, but it just really bothers me when people say they're bad with names. I'm going to give you my formula for remembering someone's name. I always say their name at least 2 times, if not 3. So if I'm meeting someone for the first time and they say, hi, my name is Lisa, instead of saying, my name is Lisa, instead of saying my name right away, because your initial reaction is, they just told me my name, I'm going to tell them my name. What I usually say is, well, let's pick a person like Claire on my team. So she would say, hi, my name is Claire. What I always say is, Claire, it's nice to meet you, Claire. My name is Lisa. And so before I've even given her my name, I've said her name twice back to her. And I think also if someone has a more complex name and you feel like you're going to say that incorrectly, definitely say, do you mind repeating that? Names matter, and I'd like to be able to say your name correctly. And oftentimes, especially because I'm Asian, you might meet someone who has a Chinese name or whatnot, and they'll just say, oh, no, just call me May. And I'm like, no, your name matters. Please teach me how to say your name correctly. And they'll say, oh, it's Mei Lin, or they'll give you the full name. And in the process of them teaching it, your brain is hearing their name a few more times. So my formula for remembering someone's name, Claire, it's nice to meet you, Claire. My name is Lisa. And if Claire's responding and she's using my formula, say, Lisa, that's a great name. It's so nice to meet you, Lisa. If you say the person's name 2 times before saying your own, it will start to embed. You will start to make a connection in your brain. And we are so quick to ask someone their name and then say our name right back that we will forget it. So take the time to remember someone's name. And if you see them again and you've forgotten it, you can say, I've forgotten your name. Do you mind repeating it to me again? Because it matters to me that I remember it. I have used that trick where I'm introducing someone who I've met before and I have forgotten their name and I'm with a friend, and I will say to that friend, I've forgotten this person's name. Can you ask them their name so I can hear it again? And I promise you, I've never forgotten that person's name again. But remember people's names. The next thing I will say under this category of energize and enthuse is demonstrate enthusiasm. And I'm not saying just to smile. In fact, a lot of the theories around smiling, because there's all this controversy around smiling, is don't smile until the person has introduced themselves. So if you go in and you shake hands with someone and the person says, hi, I'm Claire, and I'll say, Claire, so nice to meet you, Claire. I'm Lisa. And then I will smile. I will smile after I've said my name, because it means that I've heard you, I've heard your name, I've said it, and now I'm going to express enthusiasm for this moment. Oftentimes we're told to smile, to be warm and energetic, but that can come across as fake. So we want to do it when it's authentic and when the connection has been built. There might be other ways you want to demonstrate enthusiasm. Open body language, not closed body language, making sure you're demonstrating you're present and you want to get to know that person. And ask passionately curious questions. So in season 1, episode 1, we have a whole PDF that you can download. Ask questions that are not about demography, not where are you from, what do you do, but ask questions around, what have you done in the last year that has just really made you happy? What are you most proud of? What's good thing has happened in the last week of your life? Tell me a memory that makes you smile. When we ask passionately curious questions, we start to really build connection with other people. If you want to practice all of these areas, embracing your body, practicing storytelling, and energizing and enthusing, I really highly recommend you listen to season 1, episode 1 of our podcast, which is Your Life Story is Your Leadership Story. And this is all about how to tell your life story in 3 pillars. So let's say you're not getting ready for a big presentation and you don't have any upcoming things and you just want to practice some of these tips and you want to do it in the mirror or with your iPhone. I encourage you to learn how to tell your life story as your leadership story as a way to practice all of these things. Practice it with your best friend, with a colleague, and say, hey, I've been working on my life story. It's less than 3 minutes long. Do you mind if I practice it with you? Find someone safe or go to Toastmasters and go through the program. They've got a tremendous program that builds you up from 2 minutes of public speaking to giving a full 20 to 30 minute keynote. It's really a lovely way to get yourself into it. Because if 88% of us say that we don't feel comfortable with public speaking or being somewhere where we don't know anyone, that means we can close that gap. We can get that number to be lower and lower if we all get more comfortable with this essential life skill. I hope you love this episode of In Confidence. We will have a PDF that you can download on the site with all of these tips as a little checkbox, that you can check off and say you're practicing it. If you love this episode, I hope you'll share it with someone who needed to hear this today. And subscribe so you never miss a moment of inspiration. Until next time, in the words of my 9-year-old self, I see you, I value you, and I believe in you. This is In Confidence.